go. And we are recording. So I want to say welcome, and I want to begin by acknowledging that we present this program from the traditional lands of the Coast Salish, Stillaguamish, Duwamish, Muckleshoot, and Suquamish people. Wow. Who have stewarded this land for generations. The presentation you're about to enjoy is part of Humanities Washington's Speakers Bureau program. Humanities Washington is a nonprofit organization dedicated to sparking conversation and critical thinking, and it provides many other cultural programs to hundreds of thousands of people throughout Washington each year. Thanks to the support from the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Washington Secretary of State, the Thomas S. Foley Institute for Public Policy and Public Service at Washington State University, and many private donors, Humanities Washington Speakers Bureau presenters visit all corners of the state and of the Zoom. I would encourage you to visit their website, www.humanities.org, to find other events like this one. A note on civil discourse. The Speakers Bureau program is designed to generate an open and honest conversation on many topics, some of which may be controversial. We encourage differing perspectives and viewpoints, but we also ask that you treat this topic, the speaker, and each other with respect. And thanks again to Dori Gillam and Humanities Washington for providing this program and for allowing us to record it so we can show it on our in-house TV channel. So Dori Gillam, Gillam, I'm a film person, so I think Terry Gilliam. Dori Gillam, in employment decisions, family discussions, medical care, and even in birthday cards, assumptions about being over the hill or a lazy kid are common. What do you wish society would stop saying about your generation? How can we talk about age and aging in a more positive, affirming way? In this interactive and fun talk, Dori Gillam welcomes individuals from every generation to explore how we can begin valuing all ages, including our own. Dori Gillam has researched and spoken on ageism and aging for over 30 years. Her past roles include community organizer, trainer, and speaker for AARP in the King County Library System. She holds a BS in educational psychology and a teaching certificate for secondary education. Gillam is the board chair for the Northwest Center for Creative Aging, writes for Third Act Magazine, and is a charter member of Age Friendly Seattle. She lives in Seattle, and she has known people who have been at the Hearthstone. So she's got some personal experience as well. So I'm going to shut my big mouth and I'm going to turn it over and say thank you very much to Dori.
I appreciate it, Alan. I'm so glad to be speaking with you. I've actually spoken at the Hearthstone before, I just recalled. It was about 6 years ago. Not sure if any of you were there, but I walk by it all the time on my walks around Green Lake. The first thing I'd like to do is to share my slides. I'm going to start them from the beginning, even though this is a clunky way to do it. And I would like you all to raise your hand if you'd like to get older. Yeah, I mean, what's the alternative, right? I think we all want to get older. We just want to age well, and some of us are afraid that we won't. Some of us are afraid that we will have a disease or dementia, or we'll lose loved ones, and sometimes those things happen. However, until any of those things happen, there are all kinds of things we can do to take a look at aging and ageism in our society. So I'd like to let you know that I would love to see your faces. If you would like to put your video on live and you know how to do that, I'd love to say hello to you. I know a couple people aren't able to do that today. Also would like your ideas. So I would encourage you to unmute your audio so that you can chime in. I have a couple of opportunities for us to share ideas with each other today. And that means we'll be talking back and forth, even though we're not in the same room. So I believe the wisdom is in the room and you are in the room. So I know you guys have just as many things to say about these topics as I do. And I'd love to hear your ideas because I learn just as much from these groups as I present. This is called What's Age Got to Do with It? And I would like to cover today, what is ageism? Where does it show up? How do you feel about it? And I'll find out if maybe we could be more positive. Ageism, quite simply, is prejudice or discrimination based on a person's age. And it cuts both ways. there can be age discrimination against people who are older and people who are younger. And I've got a few examples of that for you today. But first, let's take a look at the generations that we're all part of. People who like to name things and label things and put people into groups have kind of coordinated the generations into these names. So find yourself, find your nieces and nephews and kids or grandkids, and see what they're calling themselves today, or what at least society is calling themselves. And there are, you'll notice there are a brand new generation called Gen Alpha. I don't think there are any of them here today, but we'll see what they have to offer us as we go towards the future. So first, let's take a look at how does ageism show up. I love looking at birthday cards. I love getting them and receiving them, getting them and giving them. And here's one that I've seen recently. It says, "So you're 50. Are you tired of all the sarcastic, mindless cards you've been getting that joke about your age?" And you open it up and it says, "Well, that's because the sense of humor is the first to go. Happy 50th. I didn't think I lost my sense of humor at 50. I'm 69, and I certainly hope to continue my sense of humor." But there are birthday cards out there that joke about all kinds of things having to do with getting older. This one says, "Now I understand why Peter Pan didn't want to grow up. Happy 50th. Does this person look 50 to you?
No.
No. And yet, these cards are on the shelves at the local grocery stores and drugstores. Here's one. It's not really a birthday card, but we hear a lot that people say millennials act so entitled. And I actually heard a friend of mine say, "I have nothing to say to someone who thinks LOL is a word." So we know that LOL stands for laugh out loud or laughing out loud. And I don't know anybody who thinks it's a word. We grew up with acronyms. How many of you know what IBM stands for? International Business Machines. How about ACLU? We grew up with lots of acronyms, but we don't think they're words. We know they stand for something. So I was very surprised when one of my friends said this, because that person is cutting out entire generations of people because they don't want to listen to what they have to say. I think that's tough. Here's another one. There's a reason 60 and sexy sound alike. That's because the hearing is the first to go. Happy 60th. Here's one that's not really a birthday card, but I saw it online. It says, "Okay, boomer." Baby boomers did that thing where you leave a single square of toilet paper on the roll and pretend it's not your turn to change it, except with the whole environment. Now, the boomer generation and the silent generation right before that really were the ones who invented plastics. And plastics are fabulous. What an amazing invention. They're lightweight, they are durable, and they reinvented so many things and made possible so many things because of the invention of plastic. I will admit, as a baby boomer, I personally didn't invent plastic, but also the boomer generation and the people who were fabulous scientists to develop it kind of forgot to invent what to do with it. So yes, the environment is taking the brunt of all the plastic that we throw out or that gets tossed after it's finished being used. So yeah, I think we're going to have to take that little jab there. Here's one that I have given and received. It says, "Look at those two women over there. In 20 years, we're going to look like that." And you open it up and it says, "Helen, you idiot, that's a mirror." Yeah, but it does make fun of that people look older as they get older. But you know what? So does everyone else who's walking the streets out there. And the last one says, "As we get older, we lose our youth, but gain invaluable insight and wisdom." Lousy trade, if you ask me. Happy 60th. Yeah, so these are some of the things we can see every day and the kind of cards we receive and give every day. that really have to do with kind of making fun of aging. And it's okay to make fun of it as long as we also know how to value it. Here are some other ways that ageism shows up. Have you ever noticed they hire older actors to advertise products having to do with irregularity or diapers or sexual dysfunction, and yet people of any age might need to use those products? They also often choose younger actors to advertise lingerie, wrinkle and anti-aging cream, and hair restoration products, and yet people of any age might need to use those products or might want to use those products. Gosh, I think almost everyone wears underwear. So I don't know why we only choose a 20-year-old to advertise underwear. And yet I'm not sure why we have to have anybody showing their underwear on television or in magazines, but it doesn't only have to be younger people. We have money and we buy these products too. Then, of course, there's the magazines on the check stand, the top 10 beauty mistakes that older women make. Gosh, that doesn't sound like a very fun topic for me. Why would I even buy that magazine? Or 5 hairstyles that make you look older. Hey, this is what I look like. This is what 69 looks like. So I can't help the way I choose my hairstyle. But that brings up a good point. I think society, and many of us, have forgotten what 65 looks like. So who can tell me this famous painting? What's the name of it?
Whistler's Mother.
Whistler's Mother. When that painting was done, it was 150 years ago, and the subject, who was not named Whistler, but it was his mother, and she is 65 in this photo, or this painting. Now, she looks a little different than some 65-year-olds today, but then if you think about the average lifespan 150 years ago was 41. So this woman at 65 would be considered ancient, not just very old, but ancient. Very lucky to have lived to be 65. So does anyone know who's this?
Tina Turner.
Tina Turner. She was 65 when this photo was taken. And these two women look a little different at 65.
Yeah.
Now, you might say, well, Tina Turner has makeup artists and that she's probably wearing a wig and she's an entertainer. Of course, she's going to try to look as vibrant and electric as possible. And yet, I think that if we ask the average person, what does it look like to be 65? They would probably choose someone that looks more like the painting of Whistler's Mother. Or if we remember that birthday card with the older man who was showed a person who was stooped over with gray hair and gray beard using a cane. And it said, now I know why Peter Pan didn't want to grow up. And it said, happy 50th. So we're getting reinforced in the media that even 50 is very old and people are not able to do anything anymore. Can't walk, can't talk, can't eat, can't remember, can't laugh, can't see. And that's pretty serious. Because I think that ageism is a very strange prejudice. It's a prejudice against our past or our future selves. And that's pretty tough because I don't understand why we would want to make fun of growing older when everybody's doing it. Every single person on the planet is doing it. And I don't know why we would want to be afraid of getting older or fight getting older when everybody around us is also doing it. Doesn't really make sense to me, but that's part of what ageism does, or any prejudice. It makes us discount the group that we're segregating out. Let's look at a couple other ways we see this happen in society. Labels. There's all kinds of labels. We have hard of hearing, bad eyesight, memory loss, disabled, and elderly. What do these labels have in common?
Negative.
They're negative. They're based on what people can't do or what's missing instead of what they can do. Here are some for the younger generation as well. People say the younger generations are selfish, they're entitled, they know it all, they act like they know it all, or they have failure to launch. I really kind of get my hairs on the back of my neck stand up when I hear people say that the younger generation has failed to launch. So you see these young people, maybe 18, 20, 22, 25 or so, who are still living with their parents. And yet, rather than say they have already failed, let's take a look at a little bit of the statistics. I went to the University of Washington in 1970. I started there when I was 18 years old. And a 1/4 of tuition at the University of Washington in 1970 was $144. And also, I had an apartment with my girlfriend, and that apartment cost $125 a month. Last, we had part-time jobs, half-time jobs. I worked 20 hours a week at Evelyn Wood Reading Dynamics. How many of you remember Evelyn Wood Reading Dynamics? Yeah. I was the evening receptionist. And on that half-time salary, I paid for college and my apartment and my food. And yes, it was very tight. My friend Janice and I knew exactly how much ketchup cost to the penny, and a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese. And, we didn't eat high on the hog. However, we could have an apartment together and live in the university district and go to college. That's not possible now. The ratios are off. Sure, costs have increased. Costs always rise, prices rise. However, the ratios are off. As you know, some of these students are in debt $50,000 to $100,000 for their college. That's how much it costs now for 4 years. And there is no job that pays for an entry-level person age 18 to work through college. So I think we need to be careful. And how sad to label someone as a failure before they even get their first job out of college or before they even get established. So I think it's something we should think about and watch what we say. Oh, here's the slide that epitomizes that. The boomer might say, student loan forgiveness isn't fair to boomers like me who paid for college fair and square. And the millennial might say, well, yeah, using 6 nickels you found under your grandma's couch, because it really costs a lot less. So here's a cartoon from the Simpsons television show where Grandpa Simpson says, it's rotten being old. No one listens to you. And Lisa, the grandchild, says, it's rotten being young. No one listens to you. Well, I also arranged some intergenerational day or half day and day long sessions. And we usually bring middle school or high schoolers together with older adults, people usually over 60. And we usually have, say, 20 of each, and they come together for the half day or day. And they talk about what's happening with their generations. And one of the questions I asked them during this is kind of what we've been talking about already. What do you wish that the society and media would stop saying about your generation? What are the negative things? And the older people say, well, I'm tired of hearing that I only have the remote in my hand all day. I sit on the couch. I'm too old to know what's going on, and my opinion doesn't matter. And the younger generation says, we're tired of hearing that we always have our phone in our hands and we're lazy and we sit around all day and we're too young to know what's going on and our opinion doesn't matter. And when these two groups find out that they're hearing some of the same things about their generations, they align and the engagement skyrockets for the rest of the day. So I encourage you to talk to people of all generations and find out what they're hearing and what they're thinking. So now I have a question for you, and this is where I encourage you to speak up. What do you wish society would stop saying about your generation? What do you hear about being older that you think you don't want to hear? Anybody?
Medicare is a freebie or a giveaway.
That Medicare is a freebie or a giveaway. Yeah, thank you.
I can say for Generation Xers, I am neither lazy nor cynical,
I'm neither lazy nor cynical.
even though my kids call me a boomer.
They know you're.
Well, I haven't been out and heard anybody saying anything about the generation. We've been so confined, we haven't heard what's going on.
Okay, Sheila,
Hearing aids, it was too loud.
Sheila, I'll go ahead and repeat what she said. She just said that she's been at the Hearthstone for a while and she hasn't been out there hearing what people say about their generation, which is valid. And I don't mean people come up to us on the street and say these things, of course.
How about you can't tell them apart because they all have gray hair and glasses?
Yeah, exactly. They all look alike. They just kind of look like little old people. And that whole phrase, little old lady or little old man.
Yeah.
She has to do that.
Think that these things come out in conversations, casual conversations we have with our grandchildren or great grandchildren. Or, I mean, it's not. I think you're a generation that's lazy. I've never said that to my kids.
Thank you. Yeah, we want to be careful how we speak about other generations, don't we? Okay, one more.
How about that generation had it too easy?
The generation had it too easy. Yeah.
1950s, happy days.
It looks really happy, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And yes, these things, we do hear them. And again, it's not like a person walks up to us on the street and says it, but it's out there in the television shows and it's something that is really happening. But I'd like to counteract that in one way, and you can too. And here's how. I think that every person has gifts of the head, the heart, and the hands. And I think we should look for what people can do rather than try to put them in some kind of a category and look at what they can't do. I would like you to think about some of the talents you have right now. Gifts of the head could be your knowledge, your experience, something that you can teach, something that you used to teach. Gifts of the heart, of course, are your compassion, your ability to volunteer and to give to other people. And gifts of the hands are things that you can make, things that you can build, whether it's actually constructing something like a house or a birdhouse, or whether it's art, some visual or physical art, or whether it's baking or knitting or something like that, where you're actually building something with your hands. So I would like to hear you. You can just shout out one of your talents and I'll start. I can tap dance to the tune, Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Okay, who's next? Tell me one of your gifts.
Let's see.
What was that, Sheila?
I have one. This is Georgia. I've belonged to my professional organization for augmentative communication for 40 years and was always on the board. But these wonderful young people have come in and just taken over the technical aspect of it. And I thought, I have no purpose on this board any longer. However, I have all the history from the past to provide. And I am feeling quite good about that. So I'm brought into every board meeting for some purpose, for some part of history. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. We're the historians. Who else? Share one of your gifts.
I belong to a book club and we're all getting older and I still can drive and I have a small SUV. So I pick up two ladies that are still needing to use walkers so they can continue to go to book club.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that and thank you for sharing it.
Empathy.
Empathy. We need a lot of that in the world.
Perseverance in staying in communication.
Oh, yes. Staying in communication with people. Thank you. Who else?
It's a talent or a gift.
One more gift or talent.
I think it's a gift of staying together and listening.
Well, I think mine would be more
Oops.
and it's a interest that I haven't shared much here, but some of the things that I did before, like was really involved in an early American glass study club. But and I still follow that. I don't have much glass that I've kept, but I still have all the books. So
Good. Thank you. Yes. Wonderful talent. One more. I heard someone trying to talk while she was talking. So can we hear from that person and then we'll move on?
I'm Suzanne, and now I have a lot of free time, and I'm now drawing a birthday card for my floor on the 5th floor. So, yeah, so I have a lot of talent for that. Doing watercoloring, birthday cards.
Lovely.
you did that.
I can
Yes,
hardly wait.
Yes, they are, Suzanne.
Yes, because I haven't seen, we're fairly new here, and I have no idea what most of the people here look like. And I smile, but I think they can't see me smile, and I'm looking forward to the smiles.
Oh, nice, Liz. Thank you. And someone else was talking right when she started. So do we have one more? Talent or gift? All right. Well, let's move on. Thank you for sharing that. And can you imagine what that little segment would have looked like if I had said, tell me something that you can't do or that you hate to do or that you never were very good at? And it would have been an entirely different amount of energy in this room. But I love hearing what people can do, what their talents are, what they like doing, and even what they have done before and have moved on and tried a new talent. Because I think that age is not a 4-letter word, because it isn't. I also think we deserve a lot of respect. Here are 3 generations of respect. This is my sister-in-law, Kyoko Matsumoto. She is the mayor of Mount Lake Terrace. And on the right, the photo is of her mother, Reiko Matsumoto, and her grandson, or Kyoko's son, my nephew, Yoshio. And they care for each other so much. Yoshi does everything he can for his grandmother, and his grandmother, as you can see, of course, loves Yoshi and encourages him in whatever he's up to. But I really appreciate the respect of these 3 generations. There's no arguing, there's no problem between these 3 generations. And you probably have that, you see that in your families too, but I like being around them because that's who they are. Mitch Albom, who wrote the book Tuesdays with Maury and other books, says if you're always battling against getting older, then you're always going to be unhappy because it's going to happen anyway.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And of course, we do know that some people actually fear aging. And I'd like to know, if you wouldn't mind sharing, what worries you about aging?
Being
Why?
disabled.
First one must be is our health. You worry about what it is that's going to attack you next.
Okay, Sheila says health. You know, you got to worry about what is going to attack you next. All right.
Say
it loud. Excuse me. I worry about my brain getting so that I'm not understanding and don't respond correctly.
Yeah, so worrying about your brain and you're not understanding. Yeah, that's a real life issue. Who else?
Loneliness, being the kind of the last person standing.
Yeah, it's tough to see friends and relatives pass away before we do.
Sorry. Coming in on the chat, we have missing out on life.
Oh, thanks, Ellen. Yeah, missing out on life. Yeah, there's some things we miss. Anything else that kind of worries you about aging?
This is Gail. I had to walk away for a minute there. Did anybody mention fear of dementia in particular?
Yeah, in another way, but yes. Thank
Okay.
you. Well, one thing that some people have brought up in these presentations is actually the fear of death. And I have found, after being a hospice worker for a while and also part of a bereavement group leader, facilitator actually, that I don't hear that many people who are actually afraid of death. They're afraid of suffering.
Mhm.
And that's a little bit of a distinction. And some studies show that actually the older we get, we don't exactly fear death, we fear what the dying process could be for us. I also have a presentation called Death is the New Sex, because my parents talked very freely about death and dying. And I learned from them that it's okay to have a joke or be a little refreshed about almost any topic. And so in my presentation, Death is the New Sex, I do have some cartoons that I show that kind of make fun of death and dying. Not everyone can go there. Not everyone can be lighthearted about it. But as I say, I'll show you some things that my parents talked about. One of the cartoons I show is this one where the woman says, Edna would be so pleased. Look, Tupperware. Her friend is in a Tupperware casket. And this one says, please, Al, you know the backstroke scares the children. Yeah. And this one is a quote from my mother. This is my mother, Clara Wright. And she says she wanted her headstone to read, I told you I was sick.
A lot of people.
Yeah, and a good sense of humor.
Yeah, they did. And I think that's part of it. Of course, nothing can replace some of the sadness we feel when someone else dies. However, if we're thinking about our own plans, then sometimes if we add a little bit of humor, it'll work out. And the reason that I call my presentation Death is the New Sex is because sex, of course, it used to be a very taboo subject. And 150 years ago, people could not bring up the word. They couldn't even say the word sex. But now, oh my goodness, it's everywhere you look, on every television show and magazine cover. It seems like sex is everywhere. So it certainly isn't taboo anymore. And that's what I'd like people to do in a different way with the topic of death. Let's learn about it. Let's prepare for it. Let's plan for it sanely. But yeah, it's not taboo anymore. So here's what some people think are the perks or the benefits of growing older. Here's Cher, who's just turned 75 a couple days ago, says, some guy said to me, don't you worry that you're too old to sing rock and roll? And she said, well, maybe you better check with Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger's older than she is. Although Cher might not be the best one to talk about growing old gracefully because she's had a lot of plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Not fair.
Not fair, yeah. And here's Carla Hall. She's a top chef. And she, in her comment about plastic surgery and all of this discussion about who's trying to look young, she says, do we not value our seasoned citizens enough to let them look their age? Why can't we just let people look their age? But I really love the way she calls us seasoned citizens since she's a top chef.
Very good.
So I have a joke for you. You heard about the 65-year-old woman who had a heart attack and was taken to the hospital. And while she was on the operating table, she had a near-death experience and she saw God. And she asked, is my time up? And God said, oh, no, no, no. You have 33 years, 2 months, and 8 days left to live. And the woman, of course, came out of that in the surgery, recovered from the surgery, and she stayed in the hospital for another 2 weeks. And while she was in the hospital, she had liposuction, she had tummy tuck, she had full cosmetic surgery and facelift, and she had her hair colored and caps put on her teeth, and she even had breast implants. And finally, 2 weeks later, when she was released from the hospital, she walked across the street and a bus hit her and she died. And she went to heaven and met God. And she said, God, I thought you said I had 33 years left to live. Why didn't you pull the bus out of my path? And he said, I didn't recognize you.
Oh. That's good.
So Helen Mirren likes to say, with age comes letting go of ego and realizing we're all in this together.
There's all these photos are rushed and
Maybe the photos.
she's got her chin over her.
Yes, she has her hand over her chin.
Yeah, I would.
Anne Lamott, who's a famous author, says, I'm all the ages I've ever been. I'll never forget my daughter, when she was about 12, said to me, oh, Mom, you've never been 12 before. And I said, I actually have been 12 before. I haven't been 12 the way you've been 12, but yeah, I do kind of understand. I'm all the ages I've ever been. So what do you think are some of the perks or benefits of being your age?
Being able to laugh at ourselves. That's Georgia saying that.
Yeah, being able to laugh.
I have a story. I took my young, say, 6-year-old to one of the children's plays, and we were sitting there with my arms around her, and she's looking up at me, and I think, oh, she's thinking how nice of me to take her to a play. And she said to me, Gigi, how come you have 3 chins?
Well, see, you even get extra chins. That's a benefit.
I'm thinking I could laugh at that.
That's right. Who else? What are some benefits of being your age?
I think for me, it might be perspective.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So Sheila, I was just saying perspective.
Perspective, yeah.
Perspective on life to draw on.
Absolutely. All right, and someone else was talking at the same time, so go ahead, it's your turn.
Carla? Oh, it's
Is that Carla or who's?
okay. Sorry, she doesn't want to say it this time. Thank you.
All right, that's okay. Who else? What are some benefits of being your age?
Well, in my life, it had to do with the older I get, the less I need to compete.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's probably a fairly male perspective. But the older I've become, the more I have enjoyed particularly male groups where we just enjoy being together rather than competing with one another, which sort of dominates our younger years.
Yeah, thank you. I think you're right. We have one more. What's the benefit? I like the discounts.
I like the regional bus discount. That's an incredible benefit.
It is.
Senior cards.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, there are benefits. And I think perspective is one of the ones that I really appreciate, because it's true. It's difficult to have the perspective that older adults have if you're not older yet. And even though younger people have wonderful perspectives to share with us, there's something about having been on the planet a little bit longer. So here's Sally Field. Sally Field says, when asked, how are you different at 70 compared to your 20s? And she said, I have the sturdiness of history holding up my legs now. Yeah. And Susan Sarandon says, I look forward to being older when what you look like becomes less of an issue and what you are is the point. So we've heard a little bit about this from you. I'd like to ask, last official question is, how do you feel about your own aging? We talked about generally the attitude of aging, but what do you feel about your own aging, you getting older?
About the aging process.
Carla is saying she tries not to think about the aging process.
Okay, yeah, just let it happen. Just keep on keeping on.
Yes.
I'm 91.
Thank you, Carla.
I'd say mostly very comfortable.
Comfortable. Mhm.
Yes.
And this is Georgia. Don't we feel that wisdom comes with age?
It mostly does. There are some people who don't seem to have gained much, but but yes, mostly that happens.
I just find it's more comfortable than I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
I really am enjoying the lack of competition, the ability to say, no, I'm not going to be in charge anymore. Just to feel comfortable in who I am.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you. All
I,
right.
I,
Oh, one more. Mhm.
oh, can I, I know I'm like the person who's running the Zoom, but there's so many, I come from a library background and there's so many books, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a, I won't say the word, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. I feel like that's so much easier to do with the wisdom and even the empathy you have as you age. I'm finding that for myself. I'm in my late 40s. And I feel like that's a real benefit that comes more naturally. There are plenty of wise and empathic younger people, but I think that that's something that just you develop, and it's a really great thing that I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Well, and I think part of it has to do also with not worrying about what we look like, as we've talked a little bit before. And if I were to line up 80-year-olds in front of you and not tell you how old they were, there would be a wide variety of the way people look. And I think that just saying, gee, you don't look your age, or, oh, gee, she really looks her age, is quite a disservice and can be ageist in its own right. So when people say to me, you don't look 69, I say, well, this is what 69 looks like. I've said that before this presentation. This picture was taken on my 65th birthday at Two Shoe Barbecue, which is in Ballard. And my friend Bill, actually somebody put the quarter in and he snapped this picture of me because the horse really did work. So I was a little surprised, but yeah, you know what? Sometimes if people want to know how old I am, I say, well, I was born in 1952. You do the math. And later they might have to do it. They do say that scientists say that people who think positively about aging live on average 7 to 10 years longer than those who have a negative view. The example of that are my parents. This is Ralph and Clara Wright. They lived to be 95. They were madly in love. They were married for over 70 years, and they were very positive. They were pragmatic people. They had a great sense of humor, and they did live through the Great Depression, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. They lived through physical medical mistakes and medical issues, including heart attacks, strokes, amputations, leg amputations. And they also had children and grandchildren, and they had the best attitude of kind of anyone I know. You've heard a couple of the comedy routines of my mom, and just my dad had an amazing sense of humor. But they really felt that if you can laugh through it, you can live through it. And they're my model of resilience because they've been through so much. So think about, as you leave today, we're not quite ready to leave, but what is your legacy around the attitude of aging? And what I mean by that is, whatever you say about aging, whether you grumble about it like, oh, don't grow old, sister, or aging ain't for sissies, or whatever it is you're saying about aging, think about that as you talk about that, whether it's to your next door neighbor there at the hearthstone, or someone on the phone, your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, whoever it is, think about that's what you're telling them aging is like, especially if they're younger than you are. And that's the legacy you're leaving. This is what you're telling them. Now, we've already looked at today, gosh, everything about aging is not positive. There are all kinds of issues that can happen to us, and we've lived through a lot of things already. Most of you lived through more than I have at age 69. Yet think about, what are you teaching people about aging? Are you back to the original birthday cards that say, wow, the wisdom and the perspective are nothing compared to the loss of your youth, and those kinds of things. So just think about that as you move forward. And I'd like to leave you with a couple of things. We're going to look at some more positive birthday cards, but I'm also going to invite you to stay after the presentation is officially finished. I have 2 jokes that I would like to tell you. I already told you one. These 2 are a little on the naughty side, but they're not. There's nothing profane about them. If you want to listen to these people, they're ready.
Yeah, we're ready.
Stay for the jokes. Then once we're finished and Alan says, thank you very much for coming, he'll turn it back over to me and keep recording, keep recording the jokes. But if you want to drop off, you'll know that the session is over, and I'll give you plenty of warning if you do not want to hear my 2 jokes. So let's look at some more positive greeting cards. 1, if gray hair is a sign of wisdom, you're a genius. Happy birthday.
Wow, love it.
Yeah, there you go. Also, here's one where that people are wearing t-shirts. Do something different on your birthday. The older adult has a t-shirt that says, talk to old people. They know cool stuff you don't. And the younger person has on the t-shirt that says, talk to young people. They know cool stuff you don't. Here's one I love. Being one day older only matters if you're a banana.
Ain't the truth.
Ain't the truth, yeah. And this one says, happy birthday. Wrinkles mean you laughed, gray hair means you cared, and scars mean you lived.
Oh.
And my next door neighbors have 2 little girls, 5 and 2 years old. And one of them looked at the little wrinkles I have here, the marionette wrinkles, and said, you have creases here. And I says, well, that's where I keep my memories.
Oh.
And I didn't make that up, but I've heard that wrinkles are simply containers for your memories. And don't these Native American women look like they're having the most fun? They're absolutely cracking up.
Sure do.
Yeah, I want to know what they're laughing about. Here's another one. Birthdays are good for your health because studies have shown that people who have more birthdays live longer.
Thinking like,
I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Love the logic.
Absolutely. Now, here's one that isn't really a birthday card, but I saw this on the front of a magazine cover. It says, oh, we have people on the phone.
thank you. I think that's lunch.
This magazine cover says 20 things that women should stop wearing after the age of 40. And all of them, numbers 1 through 20, are the weight of other people's expectations and judgments.
Call from Carmen.
Is it really time for me to go to lunch? Okay, here's one more. See, gray hair is really very cute.
I like that one. Oh, these are fun. It's fun to read.
This one with 2 naked people on their bicycles. Don't think of it as another year older. Think of it as another wrinkle in your birthday suit. And this is a shot I took in India a few years ago on a Habitat for Humanity trip. And I had heard this legend, so I combined the 2 into this picture. In India, a man asked his barber, do you have anything for gray hair? And the barber says, yes, respect.
Oh, that is sweet.
That's what we all want, respect. So if you'd like to read more about ageism, then I recommend this book. It's called This Chair Rocks, and it's called A Manifesto Against Ageism. It's written by a woman named Ashton Applewhite, and she is the definitive source, and this is the definitive work on ageism. She speaks all over the country. She's been to Seattle a couple of times, and I've met her a couple times. But she has this great blog. If you go to www.yoisthisageist.com, you can ask her any question, and you can also read what other people have asked. And they're actually saying, is it ageist to have said this? Or someone said this to me the other day, is that ageist? And she'll tell you what she thinks. So she's a lot of fun, and she is very smart. She also has a TED Talk. I think it's about 12 minutes long on ageism, Ashton Applewhite. And guess who is on the cover of Third Act magazine this month?
Oh my.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with Third Act magazine, Alan, do you get Third Act magazine at the Hearthstone? Do you know?
I was about to reach for an issue because we do. I just don't have the current issue in hand. Let me go see if I can find it.
Well, it'll be there in a few days, if not, because I just got mine in the mail. Plus, there's a terrific article about me in this particular issue. But you can always go out to www.thirdactmag.com and read the whole issue. It's a great magazine. It's Northwest. It's Pacific Northwest magazine. Ah, there she is. And it is it's local authors and local people who are featured. And it's only been around about 5 years. And it's a really great magazine because it's not only about how to prevent falls, which I'm sure all of you have read enough articles on how to prevent falls. And it's for people who are still interested in knowing what's happening out there, for people who are aging well and having fun while they age. So I recommend you take a look at that magazine. Looks like Alan's got a few copies. Maybe there's some in the library there. Yep. All right.
In the resource center right outside my office.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining. Do you have any questions before we kind of officially end, but then tell the jokes?
We absolutely love your program. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, well done.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks, Dori.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming, and thank you for participating. It's great to hear people actually chime in and add their 2 cents to the questions that I'm asking. And I love it. I love it when you guys share your ideas.
Thank you. Thank you. You're very inspiring and just plain delightful.
Lunch to take.
Well, that doesn't.
All right.
We have
Alan,
a great job from everyone, including your daughter. I'm assuming your daughter.
She did join. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, she did say mom, so I just wanted to be sure that there could have been some weird stuff going on.
Yeah.
So I do want to mention the world famous Dori is down here. Come and get that. From yesterday's program, where we had a wonderful resident, Phyllis McFerrin, talking about her time in the Navy waves. I mean, talk about age and experience, and a wonderful program. We have that on YouTube. We'll have this on YouTube. You can come and get a copy of the book too. I just wanted to say those things before I say thank you so much, Dori. That was such a interesting, amusing presentation. Thanks, Humanities Washington. I will get the link to the evaluation out with the week's email. And does anybody have any final questions before we get into the blue part of the presentation?
Okay. All right, here we go. If you don't want to hear these jokes, you better drop off. Are you ready? By the way, in case you didn't realize it, I really like giving this presentation, in case you couldn't tell. So did you hear about the 60-year-old who went to the doctor for their regular checkup, and the doctor said, "Oh, well, you're very healthy for a 60-year-old. Your checkup looks great. But can I ask you, for your medical records, at what age did your father die?" And the man said, "Did I say my father died? My father's 80. He teaches salsa lessons and he still skis. He's in great shape." The doctor said, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry. But for your medical records, at what age did your grandfather die?" And the man said, "Did I say my grandfather died? My grandfather's 100 years old. In fact, he's getting married in 2 weeks." And the doctor said, "Why would your grandfather want to get married at age 100? Did I say he wanted to get married?"
I like that one. I'm gonna write that one down.
Okay, final joke, number 2. There was a 90-year-old man who sat down next to the 90-year-old woman on the porch of the retirement community. And he said, you know, for $5, I'll make love to you over in that rocking chair. And she grabbed her purse and she looked at him. And he said, but for $10, I'll make love to you over on that sofa. She grabbed her purse and she looked at him. He said, but for $20, I'll take you back to my room and we will have candles and wine and music and I'll show you the most romantic afternoon you've had in years. And she grabbed her purse and she looked at him. And very slowly, she opened up her purse and she took out a $20 bill and handed it to him. And he said, oh, you want to go back to my room? And she said, heck no, I want it 4 times in that rocking chair.
Oh.
All right, that's all.
Very good.
Oh, good. Is this in the magazine article? Are these jokes included? Shoot.
Those aren't in the magazine article.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us and for contributing all your great input and ideas.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And I have put the evaluation link. That's how Humanities Washington gets their funding. So please fill that out. As I said, I'll link to it in the email. And thanks again, Dori. Those jokes were super funny and they weren't too inappropriate for me.
Me neither.
Thanks a lot, Alan.
Very good. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Alan.
Have a great day, everybody.
Same to
Thank
you.
you.